Real GM Radio. I'm here with Matt Moore from the Action Network and the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you hit that follow button on your podcast app. Check out our YouTube page, Real GM Radio. Make sure you are subscribed over there as well. We're doing our monthly tiers. Our theme today is in honor of the college football playoff. I wanted to tier our NBA title contenders like the college football committee, Matt. Basically, in order of how confident we are in them in the postseason. Let's jump in. All right, Real GM Radio here. So in honor of the college football playoff, we're going to create our college football playoff style bracket for the NBA. You and me, Matt, we're acting like the college football committee. So I looked at their website. They have a website, and their principles for selecting their 12 CFP teams. So they base it on strength of schedule, head-to-head competition, comparative outcomes of common opponents, without incentivizing margin of victory. I think they have a typo in their website, and which is not surprising. And other relevant factors such as unavailability of key players and coaches that may have affected a team's performance during the season or likely will affect its postseason performance. In other words, the FSU rule. I know we could do it in some other ways too. If you win the division, perhaps. I know you were talking to me before we started recording here. If you win your division, maybe you get a top 6 seed. Well, maybe we include some bye weeks like they have in the college football playoff. But I think where we need to start is just picking the 12 teams.
Yeah.
And I have a pretty good idea of, we have some locks, obviously. This was pretty hard, I thought, as we kind of got down to the bottom, like 8 to 12, 10 to 12. That was pretty difficult for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, part of this is that there's teams that we just looked at entirely differently from the start of the year, right? Like, I don't have the Warriors in my top 12. And this is a team that got off to the start where everybody was like, the Warriors are back, baby. And then I was very skeptical of that when I looked at kind of the profile, and turns out I was right. As the Warriors are 16-16, they've got a really tough strength of schedule. So they've got a 5th ranked strength of schedule. But to me, the Warriors are like Alabama this year, where it's like power program, really want to put him in, historically dominant, but like they had 3 losses. Like they lost to Vandy, and that's the Warriors, where it's like, yes, you beat the Celtics, and that's a really great win, but you got so many losses, we can't put you into this group. So the Warriors were one that I left out. The Bucks, right, is like their record is not necessarily all that impressive, but it's like there's the first 6 weeks of the season, and then there's everything since. And that's honestly like 2 entirely different teams. And so trying to figure out where to put the Bucks, I think, is a really tough one. Like there's some that we know are automatic, and there's some that I think obviously we're very much like, yeah, I don't know, maybe not.
So I also, with you, did not have the Warriors in my top 12. Couldn't get there. The Lakers I had a hard time with because they're a little bit Clemson might be too strong, but it's like Clemson is like, we don't even use the transfer portal. And the Lakers were like, we just made our first trade in 2 years. But we kind of like the infrastructure that we have, and we kind of stand for something or whatever that is. But this got hard. I think it is even hard at the top, and we might even disagree. So let's go with the teams. Just give me your top 3, because I can't imagine that the teams are different.
No.
But give me like sort of your order.
Okay. I've got the Celtics number 1. And the reason, like, I took a very let's emulate the college football playoff in that there's going to be dumb decisions made. The Cavaliers have been better than the Celtics this season in terms of record. If we look at the advanced metrics, the Celtics are number 1 in offense, 7th in defense. The Cavs are 2nd in offense, 10th in defense. So what you have is the Boston Celtics are better on offense, and they're better on defense this season. They have a head-to-head win over the Cavaliers. The one that they lost, they were missing key players, right? Like they were missing starters. And now, look, it doesn't count to me because the Cavaliers were missing Dean Wade in the one that they lost. And if you're missing Dean Wade, it doesn't count to me for the Cavaliers because I'm Dean Wade hive. But in general, just if we're looking at like how much the committee prefers historical dominance, then you have to put the Boston Celtics number 1. If like there was a really strong like, well, look, no, the Cavaliers have the better record and the better stats, and the Cavs would be 1. I can't get there, and so I think the Boston Celtics have to be number 1.
So you had it between Boston and Cleveland. I have Oklahoma City number 1.
Okay.
And I didn't do the work that you did, it sounds like, where you actually went through the schedule and were like, yeah, this game and this game. I just went to cleaning the glass and I was like, what's their, in my head to head was like, what's your record and what's your net rating against the top 10 teams in point differential, which is a stat that I love, by the way. It's like one of my favorite stats that are out there. And Oklahoma City is number one by a mile.
Yeah.
They're plus 9.2 against the top 10 point differential teams in the NBA. They are dominant all the time. They are also dominant against the best teams in the league. And so I just said, you know what? Pencil in OKC. They're obviously having this amazing season. Boston to me was number 2 because I kind of was thinking of them like Alabama in a normal year, not like Alabama this year, where it's just like, we know that there's some problems and there's definitely like holes, but it's Bama. It's Nick Saban. It used to be Nick Saban. It's all these things. That's how I feel about the Boston Celtics. And for the record, Alabama deserved it then, and the Celtics deserve the benefit of the doubt now. So I've got OKC and Boston as my 1-2.
So I think the thing with OKC, here's the comparison, and it's totally fine to have OKC number 1. OKC's Oregon, right? Fun program out west. People don't really watch them as much as they should. Underrated. Don't have as many high profile players as some of the other star teams, right? That to me is OKC, where even though I think that they have the best net rating. I don't know that I love their resume as much. So OKC's got the 23 ranked strength of schedule over dunks and threes. And so you're like, they've got these wins, but they also haven't played as many, or like they're playing Boston for the first time on Sunday in a game, by the way, that's on League Pass in the middle of an NFL Sunday.
Unreal.
I'm furious about this.
Unreal.
They play the Knicks on Friday night. So if we were to do this 1 week later, I might be like, oh, OKC went 2-0 versus Knicks and Celtics. Those are signature wins. That gets them the number 1 spot. But where we're at right now with how much their offense struggled to start the year, now they're up to 7 schedule adjusted in offense. Like they're coming for that top spot. Again, I think if we did this a week later, 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, a month later, I'm going to be with you on OKC number 1. But for right now, defending national champion Boston Celtics, power program, all that prestige, I'm going to keep the Celtics number 1.
So let's split the difference. Let's make Boston 1, OKC 2, and we'll leave Cleveland at 3.
I like this.
Maybe we just do it that way. I'm okay with it. This is such a college football playoff argument. It's like we didn't play anybody, but we beat these mediocre teams by so many points. And then Boston sitting there is like, well, we played some good teams and we have sort of a mixed result schedule on it, but don't you trust us? And because we have this resume and proof of concept here. So let's do it that way. Boston 1, OKC 2, Cleveland 3. I love this Cleveland Cavaliers team, though. And to me, they totally deserve to be in the same conversation as these other teams, right? Darius Garland, I just want to take a moment here to just shout out Darius Garland, because Donovan Mitchell is sort of the headliner there. Everything that Kenny Atkinson is doing, he's going to be in the running for coach of the year. If he's not already the favorite, he's definitely one of them. Their defense has been fantastic, but their offense is scoring at an historic rate. And you look at the roster and you're like, yeah, Donovan Mitchell, awesome offensive player. Jared Allen is effective around the basket. Evan Mobley is like pretty raw offensively, even though he's impactful. Darius Garland is carrying so much of that offense, not just with the passing and the playmaking stuff, but looking it up the other day. And I was writing this, I wrote this for the whiteboard today, Matt, which I know you do the Monday column for. And like he's shooting 65% about in non-restricted area paint shots. That's basically layups from like 10 feet out. And when you're able to stress out a defense that way, because we know every defense now is built to take away stuff at the rim, and now every defense is also trying to run guys off the three-point line. So they're giving you that mid-range shot. And if you're slithery enough like Garland or Mitchell or these guys, you're going to touch the paint. You're going to get at least a foot in the paint. You might not get that deep, but when you're shooting your floaters at like a 56% rate and shooting all those shots at like a 65% clip, you don't need to get all the way to like the rim for a layup. You're basically shooting layups from like 8 to 10 feet out. And when you're just like getting all the juice that you can possibly squeeze out of that low-hanging fruit, that's devastating for an opposing defense, because that's the stuff that you're giving the Cavaliers and every other offense. And they're making the most out of that. And you're like, okay, well now we literally can't take everything away. And if we try to take anything away, they're going to be effective from those areas.
I love the way they play. They've been the most fun watching me in the league this season. I've tried to kind of maintain this of like, look, I don't know if the Cavaliers are going to be able to knock off Boston. I don't know if they can win a title. I don't know if they can keep playing like this the whole way through. Maybe they're playoff frauds, blah, blah, blah. I love watching the Cavs. They are just fun every single night. They share the ball. They move the ball. They've got one of the things that's cool is they share the ball between guys with such different skill sets. Boston shares the ball between 5 guys who all do the same stuff. And so it's really cool to see Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. I love like Jared Allen's little post up hook shots. Like Jared Allen will just take like, oh, I've got a smaller guy, little hook shot. You mentioned Garland. I also want to shout out Donovan Mitchell because Mitchell's taken he's averaging a career high on 3-point percentage. He's taken a step back to be willing to be like, yeah, okay, I'm not gonna be in the MVP conversation because I'm not dominating the ball. You know what? We're on pace for 72 wins.
Right.
Like, fine, no problem. I love that kind of sacrifice. And as the leader of the Dean Wade Hive, I have to mention 23-1. 23-1 when Dean Wade plays for the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Maybe he should be on the MVP conversation.
Maybe.
Who's next on your tiers?
Okay, so this next one is brutal. This is a brutal selection because I did divisions as conferences, right? You win your division, you win your conference, and there's a lot more teams in the conferences, and they have more prestige, and people don't care about divisions. They should, by the way. They count for tiebreakers. I have the Memphis Grizzlies number 4.
Wow.
And so I don't know. I don't know whether to. Here's my premise. It's Memphis or Dallas. It's not Houston. I'm sorry, Houston. Your resume does not get you there. You've won a lot of games. You're on pace for a really great season. I do not believe in you in the same way. And maybe that's me like disrespecting a team that's on the up and coming that I should give more credit to for what they're going to be able to accomplish. But Memphis and Dallas for me is very close. If we look at Dunks and Threes has a really great feature where they can actually show you like, hey, here's what we project them at if they're at full strength, if nobody's hurt. And Dallas comes out slightly ahead of Memphis in net rating. And I think that's very interesting. I don't know what to do with this Luka thing because part of my Memphis calculation is they are currently in the league 6th on offense, 5th on defense. Jaren Jackson Jr., I think, should be the leader for DPOY. They are 6th in overall net rating schedule adjusted. They've had a cupcake schedule, 28th in the league. Okay. This is not a schedule argument. That's why they're not in that top tier. But they are 23-11. They've got the same number of losses as Houston, notably. I understand a Houston fan being livid, but I'm willing to make this decision. Ja missing games, Bane missing games, Marcus Smart missing games. They've had terrible injury luck, and they've maintained, and in terms of their overall strength, they've been playing their best basketball. I think it is razor thin between them and Dallas. Luka, in this theoretical exercise, if we're going to say that you're going to be fully healthy, that changes the equation. I'm willing on this premise to go ahead and give Memphis the very slight edge, but I have no objection if we think it should be Dallas. It just can't be Houston.
So I had Dallas slightly ahead. And for the record, I had a different team completely in my 4th spot, but we'll get to them. I had Dallas at 5, Memphis at 6. But I had a hard time with this just like you did. I was like, man, like you look at all these. Ultimately, I went with Dallas because they made the finals last year and they have the best player. And Luka's going to be out for about a month here with this calf strain. Before he went out, they had won 14 of their 17 games.
Yeah.
I was like, when they're together, they look great. Like I was like, yep, that's the finals team. Great on defense, hitting shots on offense. Luka was rounding into MVP form before the calf strain. I was like, yep, I like that. That to me was more representative of what they're going to be. And I think when Luka comes back, he should be fine.
All right, if we're going to project this for like down the line and we assume health, I'm going to flip it and let's go with Grizzlies with Dallas in 4. Or if you want Dallas in 4, do you want a different team in 4?
I do want a different team in 4, but let's finish the Dallas-Memphis thing. I just like everything you said about Memphis is absolutely right, and we're splitting hairs here. I think this team is awesome. I really do, and their starting lineup, their preferred starting lineup, I should say, because they've only played 4 games together. John Morant, Desmond Bane, Jalen Wells, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Zach Edey, outscoring teams by 60.4 points per 100 possessions.
Yeah.
It's a totally fake stat. But it is a formula that works over and over. We've seen it, whether it's Edey or Steven Adams or Jonas Valanciunas or whoever. Put a big screen-setting center next to John Morant with spacing on the floor and Jaren Jackson Jr. anchoring that defense, and that's and whatever small forward you want, apparently. And and it's a recipe for success. And also, I don't mean to disrespect Jalen Wells. He's been awesome as a rookie.
He's been great. I think he has a stronger rookie of the year case than people think.
Agreed.
If we're talking NBA playoffs, right? The Dallas-Memphis comparison is amazing for this reason. Dallas's thing is we have a formula that is so tough for you to beat. If you are not perfectly tailored, we're going to beat you. We only have one formula: rim protection, Luka and Kyrie with shooters. That's it. Rim protection, Luka and Kyrie with shooters. That's our formula. Period. End dot. Memphis is the opposite, where Memphis is like, we have 17 million different combinations that can kill you.
Right.
Do you want to play small? Let's play small. Do you want to play big? How about Jaren Jackson and Zach Edey? Do you want to play a defensive grinded out game? No problem. We've got one of the best defenses in the NBA. Do you want to have a shootout? No issue. Our bench is lighting the world on fire with Santi Aldama and the rest of those guys off the bench. They have so many combos that they can throw out. That optionality to me is what's really important in the NBA. I would absolutely love a series between those two teams to try and figure it out, like who's going to get the edge in that kind of sequence. But the 17-4, that got me. We're projecting health. I was like, the thing when you were talking, I was like, if it was on neutral court, fully healthy, who do I think should be favored? And I was like, I think Dallas should be about 2-point favorite.
Yeah.
So let's.
And then also with the injury part of it too, how much can you trust Memphis, right? Like I'll go back to the college football playoff website. Other relevant factors such as unavailability, third tries the charm, of key players and coaches that may have affected the team's performance during the season or likely will affect its postseason performance. Memphis is a little like the John Morant stuff. I'm like, that guy.
Look, you can say that
healthy for a whole playoff.
I get it, but now we're looking at Luka.
Yeah,
and
totally
Luka's been completely been in and out. Kyrie gets banged up and misses games.
Yep.
PJ Washington got hurt last night. Like they're having, I think injuries are tough for everybody, but I think both these teams are a little bit vulnerable to that. I am very curious here. If we are assuming, I do think that if you win your division, you need to win the conference, because in the college football playoff, you can win one of the, like the Big 12 winner gets in, and we'll get to the Big 12 winner here in a minute. But like, I think that's got to matter. I'm very curious who you have it for if you don't have one of these teams.
So I think this is breaking one of your division rules here, but I had the Knicks at 4.
You can't have it. If we got to treat it like conferences. We're doing college football playoff.
So I'm confused. We've had 2 SEC teams in the college football playoff.
Yeah, you can have them in the college football playoff because we got 12 teams. I have the Knicks just outside of that, but those top 6 have got to be our division winners. It's like old NBA rules.
Oh, old NBA. Okay, I see. So because I had the Knicks. Do you think that the Knicks are a worse team than Dallas and Memphis?
God, that's a good question.
Because I think that they might be creeping into that top tier, Matt.
I mean, look, the resume says 1 fewer loss than Memphis and Houston, better net rating, 3rd in offense, 14th in defense. The Knicks have the 30th ranked strength of schedule so far, and it feels like it. Not won 9 in a row as we're recording this.
But a soft schedule.
So they play OKC on Friday.
Yep. It's going to be huge. That's what I want to see. They are 3rd in defensive rating in the last 10 games, 11.4 net rating. That schedule just, it felt like they were playing the Wizards every night. And they sort of were. This game on Friday against the Thunder is going to be such an indicator for me. Like that is, if they can play, my problem with New York is they are a little bit of the opposite of Memphis. They feel like they're really one speed. And they do it really well. Like the Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns pick and pop, pick and roll game is elite. Mikal Bridges is finally rounding into form after first getting there. It felt like the Knicks for the first part of the season were just trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to get Cat involved? What are we going to do with this Brunson Cat 2-man game? And they just sort of put Mikal Bridges over there on the side. We'll deal with this later. And they dealt with it. And now he's playing a lot better. OG Anunoby's been great for him as usual. But the bench is just a little too flimsy for me to love it. And it feels like if their starters don't dominate, then they have a problem. And then when they go up against other great starting lineups, that's where it gets a little loose for me. But their record against top 10 point differential teams is pretty good, and as is their net rating. But I want to see the OKC game. But to me, they're higher than Dallas and Memphis for me. I just like them a little bit more.
Wins versus Minnesota twice.
Mm-hmm.
Losses to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
That Boston loss, I think, needs to matter a lot on opening night.
You think it matters a lot? See, I'm almost throwing it into the recycling bin a little bit because that Knicks team wasn't like they didn't know what they were doing yet.
I
They
get
got
it.
Karl Anthony Towns 2 weeks before that.
I get it, but that's part of the resume here. Like your resume
Fair
has
enough.
to matter for getting in here. I mean, I'm just looking at the straight the schedule. By the way, they only plays Minnesota once in the regular season. I was looking at preseason. A win over Minnesota on the road. That was a good one. They beat the Spurs at home by 3.
And they looked a lot better against the Celtics in that second matchup.
Like they played the Magic twice when they've been without either Franz Paulo or both.
They need a statement win.
They lost to the Rockets. They beat the Heat at Miami. Lost to Cleveland at home. Yeah, I mean, look. Here's my thing with the Knicks in a college football format. Again, I think we got to put the divisions as divisions like conference winners, so they got to be top 6. I think Knicks have to be 7. Like I would have them above Memphis in this ranking. Is that I would have 6 be the lowest division winner, and then the first wild card is the New York Knicks because I do think that they've been better than everybody else when we kind of like start putting these in the tiers.
So we'll seed them, I guess. I don't know how we were really doing this. All right, so what are we doing? We're doing Dallas 4, New York 5, Memphis 6.
I will say division because the hilarity of the conference of the college football playoff is that Arizona State, who played a phenomenal game versus Texas yesterday,
great game,
but Arizona State got this high seeding for winning the Big 12. Like the ACC winner gets these big like we should follow that format to showcase how ridiculous it is and why the NBA moved away from that and removed division dominance from these things because I think it makes for a more interesting bracket. So I think we put Knicks at 7, and if we agree on the Mavericks being, I think, and we do, Mavericks being 4.
So then we have Mavericks 4, Memphis 5. We're gonna move the Knicks down to a
7,
very quality 7 seed.
Yes.
All right, so that means we have 2 teams to fill in.
Yes.
All right, give me both of them.
Okay, so these are both, I think, in my opinion, in the East and West, right? You got 3 teams in the East, 3 conferences in the West, or divisions in the East, 3 divisions in the West. It's the Ghidorah meme from the Godzilla dragon, where it's like the brrr, and then the bleh. These are the bleh teams. I didn't know what to do with the Pacific Division. I don't know what to do with this division. How do I possibly figure this out? And I don't believe in this team, and I don't like this team, and I don't think this team is as good as their record or their performance or anything. But the Los Angeles Clippers are 19-14. They got the 9th toughest strength of schedule. They've got signature wins versus the Warriors and the Lakers. They got all these wins in division to put them into this spot.
All right, I have a proposal. Because we're the college football playoff committee and we can make our own rules. We treat the Pacific Division this year as a non-Power 5 conference. You don't get an automatic bid.
All right.
And now we give that bid to the Knicks and we move the Knicks up.
Let's do it. I'm with you.
It's just what's right. But let's do the Clippers conversation. So I didn't do it by division. I had them at 12 though. I had them on my list. They are remarkably consistent. They are the rock of the NBA. They never change. They play the same way every night. James Harden goes out there and gives you 18 points and 9 assists and runs this offense that just works enough. They're a bottom 10. I think they're still bottom 10 in offensive rating. They were last time I checked. But their defense is so solid. I mean, that is a rock solid defense built around Ivica Zubac, who's having maybe his best rim protection season of his career. Derrick Jones Jr., Chris Dunn. You just got these big, long, great defenders all around. They have this great just defensive backbone. And I don't know. It's just like it's hard to move them off their spot. And every time you play a Clippers game, you're going to play it the way that the Clippers want to play it. And Kawhi Leonard's is reportedly coming back within the week.
So the question is, my question for you is, okay, we can bump the Knicks up, right? Are we bumping them to a non-Power 5 and so any of the other teams can be above them? Because I would still have other teams. Okay. Because then I hear what you're saying. I do. And the Clippers, I'm not trying to be patronizing. It's just going to come out that way. Like, good job. Good for you. Like they're 8-8 on the road. They're 11-6 at home. They're 5-2 in division, right? So 5 of the 19 wins have come in the division. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Kawhi Leonard coming back.
What does
But,
that
like,
do for you? Let's have the Kawhi Leonard conversation. So he started practicing 5-on-5, went to the G League recently to get into practice there with those guys. On paper, it feels like it should work, right? Like, he's a good defender when healthy. He plays it. He slows down the game just like the Clippers want. Last year when they were rolling with Harden and Kawhi and Paul George at the time, you had those two different offenses, right? You had the James Harden pick and roll offense, and then they would toggle between that and just dumping it into Kawhi in the post and then playing out of that. And that's that second element that they really haven't had, and you could see why he would help that offense. I remain so dubious of the entire Kawhi Leonard experience.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like he's coming back on January 4th, and I made the joke of like Kawhi Leonard is out with rest management on January 5th. Like,
right.
I don't know really what to expect from him. If we're gonna say that, like, well, the Grizzlies would really have some injury issues, like then this team gets absolutely like thrown to the bottom because it's just like, are you really gonna be able to make a playoff run if you don't have Kawhi? Is that really what we think is gonna happen? As good as this team has been, as impressive as they've been, as solid as they've been, I don't see any way that they make a real run without a healthy Kawhi, and I have no reason to think that we're gonna get there.
I don't know why they're bringing him back.
Another thing I will say that with the Clippers, they caught Denver early, and that helped. Was they caught Denver when they were still trying to figure out stuff. They handed them their second loss of the season on the road. That's a good win because you beat Denver in Denver. But when you start to go down their strength of schedule, and you're like, all right, so how did they do in those tough games? That's where I started to be like, all right, they had a 3-game stretch, lost to OKC, lost to Houston again. They beat the Warriors by 3 because, again, those division games, they get blown out by Boston. They lose to the Wolves. They sneak one out versus Denver, who, again, is, I think, really inconsistent. They lose to the Wolves by 28. They lose to the Rockets again by 11. Like, when we start going down this kind of list, you start to see that, like, yeah, they got a tough strength of schedule, but they have also no wins versus that tough strength of schedule. Right? That's one of the differences in college football and the NBA is like, yeah, you can have a tough strength of schedule comparatively, but you can also just like lose all those games and win all the rest of them. Because I think a good question here is honestly, all right, so Clippers are 19th in offense, schedule adjusted, 6th in defense. Minnesota's 20th in offense, 4th in defense.
It's the same formula.
And they have a better net rating.
Yeah. Minnesota's got to be higher.
And they have one more win.
Yeah.
Or so it's they have
and in that cleaning the glass metric that I was talking about, like they're below Minnesota, Atlanta, and Indiana in their net rating against top 10 point differential teams. So I couldn't bring. I like them enough at 12, but that's because I was having a harder time finding a team at 12 that I liked more. But I can't bring them higher.
We're making up the rules here. I have a suggestion for the non-Power 5 conference. Why don't we do? You get 2 wild cards can go above, but that's it. You have, if you're going to be a division winner, you got to go above. So let's put. Do you want Memphis or Houston above?
Memphis.
Okay. So Memphis goes to 6. Knicks at 5. Or do you want Memphis, or do you want the Knicks at 4 over the Mavericks?
We could do Dallas 4.
No, let's do Knicks. They're healthier. They don't have the questions with them.
Fair enough.
So 4 Knicks, 5 Mavericks, 6 Grizzlies.
Yep.
That looks good to me. Then 7 Clippers. And then we have the real, oh my God, this conference team. As the last division winner is the poor Orlando Magic. Now, what's interesting about this, Wes, is if we're going to project forward and we're going to be like, well, we're talking about the Mavericks with Luka fully healthy. If we're doing this with Orlando, their offense for the scant 4 or 5 games that they had Paolo Banchero and Franz was so good. And they were moving the ball better and the process was so much better. But also since then, the offense has been in the garbage in part just because they can't shoot. And I'm like, does Paolo and Franz make everybody shoot better? Like, are they that much floor raisers? Are the shots that they taking away from the other guys enough? Plus, like, whatever, I don't know how to balance that. I love this Magic team, and I think that they're going to make a real ruckus in the playoffs. I think they're going to be this team that nobody sees coming when we get to April, and all of a sudden we're like, uh-oh. And Orlando, like, I have a wild prediction about Orlando in the playoffs. I'll save for another time. But they're so good, and yet the offense is so bad. I feel like I cannot put them above Clippers, Grizzlies, Mavericks, Knicks, Cavaliers, Thunder, Celtics.
So my thing about the Magic, when Paolo was playing, to answer your question about how he changes the offense, when he was playing, there was an element of pace that the Magic don't have without him. Even when Franz was playing, like when he gets that ball in the open court and he's just barreling down the throat of the defense, that does make everything easier for them with the 3-point shooting, right? Like when he's really engaged that way and he's making plays out of that in transition, these guys are getting more open looks. And right now, without him, even with Franz, it was slow, it was plodding, it was Franz making tough shots, it was Jalen Suggs making tough shots. I think when Paolo comes back, I have no problem having Orlando this high. I personally had him a little bit lower, but if we're doing it with the divisions and all these things now, this team is awesome defensively. They're only going to be better when they get healthier. And you add Paolo and Franz back to this thing with this new center rotation that they figured out with Goga Batadze playing a bigger role in all these. I think they have so many different options. We still haven't really seen like the big Jonathan Isaac run here yet. Feels like we're due for that too. I don't know. I think the shooting will be, it's a problem. It is definitely a problem. But they're so good at everything else that I'm like, I don't know. Like Denver's really good and they don't necessarily need to shoot threes all that much. Like maybe Orlando is just like this amazing defensive team with a couple of really tough shot makers. And in the Eastern Conference, I don't know that they're beating Boston, Cleveland, New York, or whatever, but they're as good as anybody else after that group.
So Denver and Orlando are actually opposites. Denver has shooters. They're 4th in 3-point percentage and dead last in attempts. Orlando is 13th in attempts and dead last in percentage.
And they probably what is it off the top of my head? Like they're probably averaging the same amount of makes per game. It's got to be close
to it. So if you look at cleaning the glass, this is one of the metrics I like over at CTG is they've got your expected field goal percentage. And it's shooter neutral. It's like, all right, if average shooters take shots from where you're at, what would your EFG be? Orlando's 5th in that metric. They're taking great shots. Yeah. They're 5th in rim attempts. They're 15th in 3-point attempts, non-garbage time. They're 9th in corner threes. They take a fair amount of mid-range shots, but like their shot profile is great, and they just can't make them.
I wonder if the attempts will go down when Paolo comes back because they'll just be able to get to the rim more because they have all that size. Denver makes 11.7 3-pointers per game. Orlando makes 11.2. So it's pretty close.
Hilarious. Yeah. Okay. So here's a question. To kind of figure out Orlando fully healthy, Paolo back, Franz back. No Mo Wagner, unfortunately. Do you think that they would be dogs or favorites versus the Clippers on neutral court?
I think they ought to be favorites.
Okay. Grizzlies.
I think Grizzlies are the favorites in that matchup.
So let's move Orlando because I have Orlando below just because of their injury sadness. But let's move Orlando up to 7, and let's move the Clippers down to 8.
Done.
Okay. So now we got 4 more wild cards to get through. I like where we're headed here, though. I like this a lot.
This is good. At what point? Where did I have it? Because I just messed up my whole order on my computer screen. Okay. We talked about Minnesota. Where are we at on Milwaukee?
All right. I have Milwaukee last in, and they barely got in.
You're looking at the resume right now. The NBA Cup doesn't count?
What would the equivalent in college? The equivalent in college football would be,
they got rid of it.
I guess it'd be a non-con victory.
Yeah, like the NBA Cup to me would be like winning your conference, but now nobody cares about that. No, I guess it wouldn't be. It would be like winning a bowl game, but now the bowl games are part of the college football playoff.
Right. But I think that the better comparison here, because it's an early season
it would be like, that week 1, like pack, or they got rid of that too. The Big 10 versus SEC game. Like,
yeah. So it's like one of those. And like that non-con games are going to be really important, right? It's like the not winning your division, which they can't because they're not going to catch the Cavaliers, matters. That's why they can't be one of these top seeds. 17 and 14, 3 games over 500. Pretty significant injury luck. Giannis has missed 6. Dame's missed a bunch of games. Mid, obviously. Like, I guess we're going to give him mid if we're giving them everybody else their guys. 14th in offense, 9th on defense. Doc Rivers doing work, by the way, getting that defense in 9th. 5th toughest strength of schedule. I gotta move them up. But I will say, I don't think that they can be 9. They can't.
So give me your 9 then.
All right, 9's got to be Houston.
We got to get them in there at this point. It's getting disrespectful.
Like 22-11, 5th best net rating, 11th best offense, 3rd best defense. Third best defense to me is really significant with where we're kind of at here. Strength of schedule, Houston is 20th, so not a very good one. They get the second easiest defensive strength of schedule, but that's also influenced by playing them, and they've played the same teams multiple times. 4th toughest SOS on offense, which they're 11th, so it's like their offense is probably better than it looks on like kind of the neutral paper. That's why they're 11th here. Like the Knicks are plus 5.6 schedule adjusted. The Rockets are plus 5. They're a half point behind them in net rating, tied with Memphis. Like I remove them because I do not think that Houston has the same ability. Like if it was Memphis, Houston, neutral court in a playoff game, I would have Memphis favored. If it was them versus Dallas, I would have Dallas favored. But I'll say this, I don't know. If it wasn't for that, we got the Knicks and Grizzlies as the wild cards that get to jump the conferences. Like I would have Rockets favored over Clippers. I would too. Rockets Magic, I think, is probably pick.
Yep, that's a pick 'em.
So
if both are healthy, Houston again against those top 10 point differential teams, plus 3.1. They're fourth best net rating against those teams. Like they do business. They're doing the work. I'm with you. This is the ultimate disrespect. If we're treating anybody like a non-Power 5 conference team, it's Houston right now, and they don't deserve it because the resume is awesome. And I just can't get there with them. They are, bottom 10 in the league in the fourth quarter. They have fourth quarter net rating. They have crunch time problems. A lot of these games that should be blowouts and that should increase their net rating end up not being blowouts because they give up a lot of leads at the end of these games. They obviously have a trade to make. They obviously don't have to do it now just because of our college football playoff tier. But if they could get a crunch time scorer, a guy who they could just give the ball to, that would change everything, and it's clearly what they need. But look, this defense has no holes in it. No holes. They're elite at everything defensively. They're great in transition. They're a good defensive rebounding team. Maybe the rim protection, you could take like a little bit of against like a Giannis or something like that. It would have a problem potentially, but they're rock solid on that end. And offensively, when they get these steals and they get out on the break and they get out in transition, they do work.
I've yelled for years about the college football committees and about how much they unfairly penalize teams that actually do the stuff versus the teams that just have the reputation. Like,
do we need to be the change that we want to see in the world, Matt?
How about this? They've beaten OKC.
Yep.
They've beaten Dallas and they've beaten Memphis. Like,
it feels like we should have them in the top
I know.
4.
It's like I'm getting sympathy for these college football committees because I'm like, yeah, but like the Mavericks and the Grizzlies are better than them. And if you're like, why? And you're like,
Luka?
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, I guess. But I will say this, like these collapses recently have been really bad. That collapse versus Miami was awful. Minnesota, that one was bad. And so it's like, but they have good signature wins. They play in a tough division. They have these wins versus those teams. This would be like, I'm trying to think of the comparison. This would be like Tennessee beating Georgia and Alabama and the committee being like, yeah, but like it's Alabama and Georgia.
Right. And your colors are kind of dumb.
Yeah. And so let's keep them there and acknowledge that we're disrespecting the Rockets.
We are so sorry, Rockets fans. We are so sorry. We just don't know what else to do. Sometimes I have a lot of sympathy for the college football committee. I wish they could just be like, we're sorry. We know we're wrong, but we can't help it. There's nothing else we can do.
I'm going to put
we have them over the Clippers and below the Magic?
Because we made the rule. I want the divisions to hold up, and the Clippers are going to win the division. So the Clippers get that 8th spot, and everyone's livid because they're like, how are the Clippers 8 and the Rockets 9?
And then all the money's going to come in on Houston in their first matchup.
$10.
Okay.
Because I had them too low.
Mm-hmm. I probably had them a little too high, so that's fine.
Okay. Last two I think are gonna be interesting. I have the Heat 11.
You have the Heat 11.
I have the Heat 11.
Okay, so you're not going to have one of Denver or Minnesota in here.
That's right. I'm not going to have either Denver or Minnesota in here.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is shocking. Okay. So we've got Miami 11. Give me your Miami pitch. You convinced me in the Miami Heat.
Okay. 17 and 14. All right. They've got the strength of schedule is not great. They're 12th in offense, 11th in defense, schedule adjusted. So like pretty good. They don't have a discernible weakness. Like they're just like pretty good on offense and defense. Now, I don't know if we're gonna factor in the thing that you kind of mentioned where it's like absences. It's like, is Jimmy Butler gonna be there? Because
Right.
that shot that Nikias posted last night from Jimmy, the fadeaway 3-pointer, I was like, oh boy. And the comments are so bad. I'm sure that you have like a more, it always feels worse from the outside than if you're covering the team where I actually kind of notice this sometimes where it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, like in the course of the conversation, like he just said this thing, it wasn't like this. But then like when you take like a step back and you're like, wait, but he actually did say this thing
right
out loud, right? Like we sat Jimmy Butler because we thought it gave us the best chance to win. Like I get it. The team was or that unit was giving us the most, and teams do that. Coaches do that from time to time. I kind of look at it from this perspective of they're very solid on both ends. I have more concerns about various units on Denver and Minnesota. Denver's defense, Minnesota's offense. And so when we kind of look at that now, I think strength of schedule, signature wins. I'm probably going to lean Denver. Denver's got wins versus OKC, Dallas, Golden State, the Lakers on the road. They've got like not like an elite because like they got absolutely killed by Cleveland both times. And they're probably going to get killed by Boston on Tuesday. Like they're just going to get annihilated by the Boston Celtics because I don't think the Denver Nuggets right now can hang with the top tier teams.
Right.
And I don't think Minnesota can either. And Minnesota is just very erratic. But Miami is more of the like they're just stable. Like they're going to be second probably in their division. They've got enough signature wins. They've got enough performances. They're not bad on offense or defense. They are good enough to justify, in my opinion, getting in at number 11.
I'm here for it. I think they're a good basketball team. I don't think they're an amazing basketball team. I think they're good. I think they're well coached. You're right. Like you can't just do one thing against the Heat and think that you're going to win that game, right? It's not like, okay, if we do this one thing, we could beat this team. No, you have to outplay them. You have to be well coached. You have to be well prepared. The Jimmy Butler thing is the biggest sort of mystery part of this whole bracket here because there is obviously frustrations between Jimmy Butler and the rest of the organization because of the contract, because of everything that's going on there. It's very clear. Being in the locker room after the game last night, yeah, I was there for the Eric Spoelstra post-game press conference. Jimmy Butler left before the media was even allowed in the locker room, which is not a rare thing for him, but it is noticeable every time it happens.
Oh boy.
There's just he came out and he was terrible in that third quarter. And no wonder Eric Spoelstra benched him in the fourth quarter. He was totally disengaged, but it wouldn't be the first time. It was 13 days before his last NBA action. If he didn't, and he was dealing with a stomach illness of some kind. Who knows to what degree the illness actually played a factor in him missing 5 straight games. But, there's a work back there. And he looked sluggish in person. Now, there's always that question with Jimmy Butler. Is he sluggish because of physical limitations or is he sluggish because mentally he doesn't care? He's not engaged, which was a lot of times the case last year. So we'll see what happens with him. But if this team is healthy, I do think that they're troublesome units. To me, their bench has been sort of an issue at times. That unit is going to get better because they are so reliant on some of the young guys like Khalil Ware, Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez. Like those guys are only going to get better as the year goes on. Whereas when you look at Denver, and I'm like, I have a hard time seeing how this team gets better from now until the end of the season. Minnesota, their offense is starting to come around as Dante DiVincenzo finds his shot. It feels like Julius Randle is actually going the other way, where I thought he was doing a better job fitting in, and now he's sort of fitting out more as he gets more comfortable. But I still think that offense probably gets better as the year goes on. And that defense, I just trust in a playoff setting. But I don't have a problem with putting Miami ahead of those teams.
I mean, it's tough because like if we're gonna follow the same rubric of who do I think is favored on a neutral court, Denver and Miami.
Denver's favored, Minnesota's favored.
Yeah.
Miami has 2 statement wins. They beat Cleveland earlier in the year, which is a statement win no matter what. And then they beat the Rockets the other night where you're talking about that collapse. But you even look at like a 4-game win streak that Miami had in the early part of December, they played a reeling Lakers team that just totally gave up on at the Kaseya Center. They played Phoenix, who was dealing with a lot of injuries. That Cleveland win was really solid, and then they beat Toronto, who stinks. So, it was a 4-game win streak. It was their longest win streak of the season. I still haven't gotten like a large sample of, hey, this team can play really good basketball for a sustained stretch. And part of that is because Jimmy Butler did get hurt in the OKC game on the 20th, but I don't know. Maybe I'm too close to it. Like, and I'm fully acknowledging that. I'm like, I might just be too close to the ruckus here, and I might just favor some other teams over Miami. But I can't argue with you if you want to have them over these other teams.
As we talked through it, I'll kind of come back around, and I think we got to have Denver. Look, Denver's 4th in the West. They're 19-13. They got a top 10 net rating. I can
sort of the opposite situation.
I can have all these problems. I think we're in like the same kind of thing here, where it's like I'm so close to the team, and I'm like, yeah, but like their bench is a dumpster fire. Their defense is absolute. It feels so much worse than 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just the loss of KCP for that team. Everyone talked about that switch out wrong. It wasn't replacing KCP with Christian Brown. There are problems with that, particularly with screen navigation. They have no one who can get over a screen and lock and trail. No one.
Mm-hmm.
Not a single guy on that team can do it. No one is adept at doing it except Russell Westbrook a little bit and Peyton Watson, but none of the starters can do it. And it's just like they have so many defensive like vulnerabilities. They were second in defense last year versus pick and rolls, including pass outs. They're 27th this year.
That's rough.
Like they're so bad defending pick and rolls, and a lot of it's Jokic, and a lot of it's the help, and a lot like it's everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if one part was better, you'd probably be okay, but they're not. But the offense really is just, I mean, it's starting to really click now. The Russ stuff is working. Aaron Gordon has been hurt. Now, Aaron Gordon's been hurt, which partially means when Russell Westbrook is 9-2 as a starter, that's partially why, is because Aaron Gordon's been out, so you don't have the complication of Russell Westbrook and Aaron Gordon on the court at the same time, truncating the spacing. But like, I can't do this where I'm like, okay, the Denver Nuggets have 19 wins, 13 losses, 4th in the West, top 10 net rating. Like, I can't have Miami in here over them.
No.
So let's put the Nuggets in at 11.
Behind Milwaukee.
Yeah.
So all the Denver's best lineups have Russell Westbrook in it, either replacing Aaron Gordon or Jamal Murray or Christian Brown.
Yep.
And you watch it, and like the other night, he's just his 2-man game with Jokic already. I'm like, if I'm Jamal Murray, I'm over here like I'm a little jealous. I'm like, wait, this was the person you told me not to worry about. It's kind of got that little bit of something going on there. To me with Denver, and I'm obviously, we've been talking about Denver trades, but like if they could just get one more guy some way, somehow, I have no idea, but like it doesn't have to be a big thing. I know we're talking about Michael Porter Jr. trades, Zach LaVine, all that stuff, but even like, is Sacramento committed to Trey Lyles? Like that guy feels like he could help.
I'll go even
Cody
lower.
Martin.
I'll go even lower. I'll go even lower than that. It's just take the hit on one of these second rounders. I like Hunter Tyson. Waive Hunter Tyson. You can add him to the G League team. Nobody's going to rush in and pick up Hunter Tyson.
Yeah.
You can add him to your G League team, put him on 2A next year, and go sign Justin Holiday. If you had Justin Holiday taking Julian Strother's minutes, the team is so much better. Now they want to develop Julian, and Julian's offense is really starting to come around, but his defense is absolutely wretched, and the lineups die with him on the court.
Yeah.
Just not having, if it's like, nope, we can't get away with playing Julian tonight, got to play Justin, that would be fine. Like that would help so much. What they really need in order to maximize them is they need to trade, because Porter's the only guy they can. They need to trade Porter for multiple pieces. And that's why I've been like, Zach LaVine's not the answer. The Atlanta trade for potentially multiple pieces, but Atlanta's been too good. That's like the answer for them. I love my last pick. I love my last pick for number 12. Who do you have 12?
So I had Minnesota slightly higher. Okay. I had them at like 9 or something, but okay. I have a very clear bias for Minnesota, and I'm aware of that. You didn't even have them. So who's your 12?
Well, this is a college football committee, which means that prestige matters and ratings matter. And just like Notre Dame gets every advantage in every playoff and national championship scenario, no matter what they do or how they play. Your 12 seed, the Los Angeles Lakers.
And you gave me the entire reason right there. Hey, it's LeBron. Hey, it's Anthony Davis. We got to have him in.
The justification, hey, they're 18 and 14. They're 4 games over 500.
Yeah.
So what if they're 13th on offense and 21st on defense? So what if they've got only got 14th strength of schedule, including the 17th ranked offensive strength of schedule, where that's the only area where they're good? Who cares? Who cares if they don't have signature wins, if they've lost at pretty much every signature team, including the Cavaliers last night? Nope. 18 and 14, just like Notre Dame, the Los Angeles Lakers are in the playoff.
Okay, for the ratings, but we both agree that Minnesota should be in over them.
Yeah, I mean, if we're ignoring that, then like the Warriors have a better case. Minnesota has a better case. Miami, I think, probably has a better case.
Mm-hmm.
Based off of signature wins.
Philadelphia in like a month and a half might have a better case.
Yeah. Well, here's one. I think San Antonio in a month and a half is going to have a better case.
You could argue San Antonio has a better case right now than the Lakers,
right now.
But all right. So all right. So who do we put in? You want to just keep the Lakers there?
I do.
For fun.
If you're not gonna absolutely bar me.
Nope. Let's do it. Lakers. That's the point of tiers, right? It gets weird every once in a while. It's based on a theme, and we have to be beholden to it to some account. So our final top 12 of the college football NBA playoff: Boston, OKC, Cleveland, New York, Dallas, Memphis, Orlando, the LA Clippers, Houston, Milwaukee, Denver, and the Lakers. Also, if we're doing this CFP style, that means our top 4 seeds: Boston, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, and New York, get a bye week.
Yes.
So if we were seeding it.
So your first round matchups are the Mavs versus the Lakers.
Okay.
The Grizzlies versus the Nuggets. The Magic versus the Bucks. And the Clippers versus the Rockets.
Those are some great series.
In a league pass, just like fiends matchup. Let's give the Mavs the win over the Lakers.
Yep.
As a 5 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Grizzlies, Nuggets. Let's give I would probably pick the Nuggets in that, but let's give Memphis deserves the respect of getting there. So Memphis wins as a 5, or as a 6 rather. Magic, Bucks. Who do you think wins?
I'll take the Bucks in the upset here. I think Giannis and Dame in the playoffs.
Yeah,
the answer to Orlando is you just need to have something good enough to crack that defense, and I think that 2-man game with Giannis and Dame, the way that they were playing, both of them have missed 4 games since the NBA Cup. The way that they were playing before that was really good.
All I want is Orlando Boston second round.
Mm-hmm.
I want that matchup very much. All right, but I'm with you. Giannis, Dame overpowering them with physicality and shooting. Let's go Bucks get in as a 10 seed, and then let's look at Clippers Rockets. What do you think?
Rockets. Here's our time to shine, Matt. We can show them the respect in a blowout, 20-point win. I don't know.
All right, I like that. So then I'm looking at this.
Boston, Milwaukee, is that right?
Boston. Yeah, let's reseed the way that the NFL does. So Boston, Milwaukee, OKC, Houston. Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh. Cavaliers, Mavericks. Love that.
Yeah.
And that's Cavaliers, Grizzlies. I'm sorry. Cavaliers, Grizzlies. And then because Mavs are the highest seed, so they would face the Knicks at 4-5. And then Knicks, Mavericks, Jalen Brunson revenge series.
Oh, I love this.
Let's go backwards. Knicks, Mavericks. What do you think? I want Mavs. I think the defense and Luka, like Jalen Brunson, Cat, they've got switchability with Derek Lively, and they've got switchability if they have to. They can go to Kleba. Like they've got so much size to be able to combat the rebounding advantage with PJ Washington. I like the Mavericks in that matchup.
I think I would also my initial instinct was Dallas also, but the way that Boston was able to kind of close the faucet a little bit on Luka and Kyrie in the finals, that's what the Knicks can do with their long wings to some degree. Now, can they get to the same degree that Boston did it would be the big question, right? Luka and Kyrie also missed a bunch of shots that they normally make in the finals last year. So I'll go Dallas here,
It's
but
close.
with good, yeah, this is a close one.
Okay.
And if it's played at Madison Square Garden, I don't know. Are we doing we're doing series though, right? Not
Yeah, we got
one-off
it. It's
bowl
NBA.
games.
It's
Okay.
NBA. We got to do
All right.
series. It goes long. It goes 7.
Great. Okay. I'll go
Cavs,
Dallas.
Cavs, Grizzlies. It's got to be Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Like we just got to show them the respect there. OKC, Houston should be 5 games, and it's going 7.
It's going 7. It could even go 9. I don't know how. I'm taking the Thunder. You have to take the Thunder, but understanding that this is going to be a great series.
Boston, Milwaukee. I'll take Boston.
Same.
Okay. So we've got all the top seeds except for the Knicks advance. So Boston, Dallas in a finals rematch. Cleveland, OKC. I mean, I'm taking Boston versus Dallas because they're better equipped than they were last year. Like Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall, Quentin Grimes, they help specifically with what they needed last year. Luka's less ball dominant, and that's what you kind of mentioned is Luka is able to take less of a role and them still succeed. But I don't think they're any better defensively than they were last year, and that's really like what you're going to have to be able to do. And I don't think they can keep up with Boston, who I think is still going to be able to generate the threes.
Yeah, and Boston's defense will be fine when they actually start caring about basketball games. And
I don't think so. I think that defense is really. I think the defense is way more suspect. John Corrales over at Locked On has been like, no, they're just like not putting the foot down. I'm telling you, they've leaned so much into the math that they don't care about the rim anymore, and that can get you in trouble when you start to like waver in terms of your balance and principles. But still,
I think you and I agree on that. And then health is an issue, right? Like if Porzingis is not healthy, if he misses half a series, that could swing a series. Like they just don't have the help behind him. The Drew Holiday injury obviously has been impacting them in the regular season. I don't know. I watch them and I'm like, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have to set the tone, specifically on the defensive end, and they don't. It's specifically Jaylen Brown could not care less about playing defense this year. I still think that they'll be okay, but maybe you're right. I don't think they'll be as good defensively as they were last year. So it's interesting. Dallas really needed somebody to make an above the break 3 in the finals.
Yep.
I used to have the number like memorized, but it was like they were like 7 of 36 or something from just some insanely bad number. And that's why they go out and get somebody like Klay Thompson. Klay's obviously much more like hit or miss, a little bit more streak at this point of his career. But if you're getting like a bad Boston defensive series or just not as elite and a good Klay series, that could swing it.
Yep. Cleveland, OKC. Sign me up, man.
I don't know where I want to go with this.
Like Donovan Mitchell versus Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams versus Darius Garland, Chet Holmgren versus Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen versus Isaiah Hartenstein, Max Strus, Dean Wade, Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro,
Karis LeVert
versus Isaiah Joe, Lou Dort, Aaron Wiggins, AJ
the rotating
Mitchell.
fifth man in Oklahoma City. Yep.
Give me 17 games of this.
I don't want to pick this one.
I know.
I'll go OKC just because we had them higher and their resume is better so far. I really don't feel awesome about it. Like I could go either. I could go either way and not feel awesome about it.
Yeah, I think it's so tough, right? I think we got to give OKC the edge because their defense has been so much better than everybody else's. And if you've got that perimeter defense, I think you can get there.
And they warp the court. I mean, it feels like they're playing with 7 guys defensively. And when you're closing that space on Cleveland, and if they could take their long defenders and make it a little bit harder on Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and then turn those and just take Cleveland is so good at making shots. I know that just sounds like really simplistic, but when they take shots, they make such a high rate of them. The great thing about the Thunder's defense is they don't even give you a chance to take the shot on 20% of your possessions. They just take the ball away from you. So that could be enough just to swing this thing.
It would be such a huge series in terms of I don't think anybody in like the casual fans or even like the semi-hardcore fans believe in either of these core shooting groups, right? If you're like, who do you trust more in a series? Boston with Al Horford, Derek White, I guess Peyton Pritchard, and these guys, or Sam Merrill, Dean Wade, LeVert, Okoro or Dort, Isaiah Joe, those guys who missed all those shots last year in the playoffs. Like that was why they lost that series to the Mavericks, is they couldn't hit those open, reverse court threes, and PJ Washington did. Boston, OKC. I'll go out on a limb. OKC wins. They've got the perimeter defense to. If you do not let Boston get up the threes that they want and make them make tough twos, they'll do it, and they'll do it well, but it gives you a chance. And OKC's offense, I think, is, and like this ultimately like tracks. OKC's 7th on offense. The Celtics are 7th on defense. How perfect is that right now? Right? Like it's very, very touch and go. As much as I think Tatum is underrated, but I want Shea.
Yep.
I will go with Shea and Dagnall versus Mazzulla and Tatum. So I'll take the OKC Thunder.
Let's do it. I'm down. You're not gonna make me sit here and defend the Celtics. Like I'll do it.
Right.
I also think that they have a very distinct front court advantage. The Thunder do.
Yeah.
That front court in Boston is it. I know it's only a year later. I mean, it's like 6 months later since they won the finals, but it feels like it's like you watch them and it's like it feels like it's been 5 years since these guys were playing well, and the Kristaps Porzingis injury issues. Al Horford's not the same player he once was. I know they like Keita and all these other guys, but like, come on, in a playoff series against Oklahoma City, you've got Isaiah Hartenstein and you have a whole look that you can go to with him. You've got Chet Holmgren coming back, and he's going to be the best front court player on the floor in this series and could be a huge difference maker in this. You've got Jalen Williams defend probably Jaylen Brown and vice versa. You've probably got Tatum on Shea. If you're the Thunder, you can have any number of your perimeter defenders take Tatum, have Shea be a rover as he tends to be, and try to jump those passing lanes and get those steals. I think there's a potential for them to be overwhelming defensively. And I mean, they've been overwhelming defensively all season, but I mean specifically in this matchup also. I'll take the Thunder. Why not? Let's go.
All right. That is our college football playoff for the NBA, and we still wind up with Boston OKC.
After all of that. So, what's your college football playoff prediction in real life?
Ohio State. I had Ohio State preseason and then felt really very nauseous about it after the Oregon, and then especially awful against the Michigan loss, but I'm back on. Just need to get everything together, baby. I think Ohio State's going to win it.
Oh, I like it. Good way to end the show. Matt Moore, you can catch him on the Action Network, catch him in the Locked On Podcast Network, doing these monthly tiers here on Real GM Radio. Thanks for joining, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.